Hi, we're here at InfoShare. With me, it's an amazing physicist, Ram Dušić Hren. I hope I read it correctly. I read it
Very good.
Thank you. I used to speak Czech, so it's like similar language. Oh, more or less. We have all those, triangles and whatnot. Anyways, we are here with Ram, and he's a physicist with IBM who does quantum computing, but living on the edge is like your bread and butter, because you also do skydiving, a bit of surfing, and what is it, crazy kayaking?
Skydiving without the sky.
Okay, skydiving without the sky. All right. So it's like tell us, please, when is quantum computing coming? Because everyone is waiting for it. Everyone want to decrypt their crypto keys and get those bitcoins.
So when is it coming?
When is it coming?
When is it coming? Okay. Those are those are typically
dates, like day dates.
Yeah. Deadlines. I know. That's how corporate works, right? The question of when, these are typically, the questions I don't like answering, because nobody really knows. There are estimates. So you could say probably that within the next 5 years, we are going to be able to see an advantage, right? So by that I mean quantum computers becoming, in some aspects, more powerful than classical computers, right? And outside that domain, it's really hard to tell, because a lot of the things come up during the development. And also a lot of the things we know from theory, we don't know if they can be actually implemented in practice.
Okay.
Right.
So what does it really mean? Like, because when people think about quantum computing, they think about really fast, really strong computers. So when I when I download my Grand Theft Auto 5 or Witcher the third part or whatever, I just assume it's going to be faster, better, more realistic. So is that what quantum computers are really for?
Was that a video game?
For playing video games, yeah.
I guess you could design a quantum video game.
Okay.
But no, that's not really the purpose.
Yeah.
There may be a myth going on in people's heads that quantum computers are gonna beat conventional computers in everything, or that they're gonna replace conventional computers, but that's far from reality. Quantum computers are really only powerful at very specific types of algorithms and computational problems. So they're not gonna make you a better resolution on the screen. They're not gonna make you, faster internet. They're not gonna make better video games. What they are really good at, well, they promise to be good at, is making heavy computations. By heavy computations, I mean memory-intensive computations, where you have a lot of possible configurations to crunch, right? Heavy computational problems. They promise to make some of those problems solvable in reasonable amount of time.
Right. So it's like weather forecasting, for example. Is that a good example? Because in theory, you could predict the weather for the next week with 100% accuracy, but it would take you 100 years, more or less, or 10,000 years to be really precise for the whole globe. But
I'll give you maybe a better example. So actually the inspiration for quantum computers came primarily from simulating quantum mechanics, right? By that I mean understanding the way molecules work. That is important in multiple ways, right? In order to design better materials, better, medications, whatever, you have to understand how those molecules work. And typically simulating chemistry, physics, molecules is a very hard problem, right? You probably know people have those massive supercomputers across the entire halls, and they use them for such simulations, and they can get like maybe to a molecule with a few atoms and no more, right? So For larger molecules, you just can't do it, or it would take unreasonable amounts of time. So those are the kind of problems where this could be solved in a matter of maybe minutes.
Yeah. So that's why you either get a supercomputer or you build a large hadron collider. It's and then comes quantum computers. All right, this is how it works. More or less.
I don't know how to address this. The Large Hadron Collider is an experimental device. You use it to run the experiment and see what happens. What I'm talking about is simulating.
Of course. Well, you either simulate or you do it in the real world. So.
Yeah, and you have no way of simulating it with a classical computer.
So why are there so many myths surrounding quantum computers? Like, how do you think that came to be? Like, why do we think about them in such a way that they're just going to be better, faster computers? Is it because they have quantum in the name, or people don't really understand what it means, or is it about all those science fiction fantasies?
Well, I think the reason there are so many myths. This is a quite a general phenomena when it comes to things being hyped. It happened also with blockchain. Let's say, blockchain became a hype, and everybody started using blockchain even for things that don't need blockchain. Right? In quantum computing, people hear things. People hear these are very powerful. These are very powerful computers. They're going to be able to solve problems that nobody else can solve, and so on. And word goes around, and people start explaining things that are not true. An example. Well, the reason quantum computing became a big hype is in large part because of a thing called Shor's algorithm, which is an algorithm that was developed by Peter Shor in 1994, and that's the algorithm used for factoring large numbers. And that is the mathematical problem that is behind most of encryption, right? So that's the algorithm that can, factor numbers. So effectively, in theory, break encryption, right? In almost exponentially faster than anything else we know today, right? So of course, people started talking, these are the computers that are going to break ciphers. We should be afraid, and so on. The myth around this is that, first of all, this is still theory. So we don't yet know for sure if this can be implemented in practice. Second of all, this is still far away. So far, we are at the border of around 50 qubits. Right? So qubits are quantum bits, right? In order to implement this Shor's algorithm at a large enough scale, you would need millions of qubits. Right? So
what's the, so to speak, development or upgrade rate? How many qubits do we add each year, or is it like with these microchips that every year it doubles, or every year one qubits?
I can't tell you exactly the time metric, but you could actually make an analogy of Moore's law for quantum computers. Just the metrics are a bit different, right? Okay. Because it's not only about the qubits. In principle, you could design a chip with many qubits, but the thing you need to be careful about is how do you make those qubits work together? How can you design the connections between those qubits? How can you make them stable? How can you reduce the errors? Because quantum mechanics is inherently unstable, not deterministic, right? So you have this inherent noise that is a part of the system. So you need to also keep that down as you're scaling up the system. So instead of just talking about qubits, for example, in IBM we like to use the metric of quantum volume that really takes into account these multiple dimensions of performance. So you could plot a curve of performance increase in those terms. However, I don't know exactly about the time measure.
Right. Okay. So maybe onto lighter topics. Black holes. Okay. So I want to ask you. Maybe it's connected with quantum computing, maybe not. But is there a thing that you are really excited about? The thing that you believe is going to be really the talk of the town in the next 2-3 years, but no one is yet talking about it. Like quantum computers. Maybe it could be related to quantum computers in some sense, but is there some sort of development that is brewing under the sheets, under the surface, and it's gonna come out big? Let's say Bitcoin 10 years ago or something like that. Is there anything you see or?
If I knew about Bitcoin 10 years ago, I would be a billionaire now, right?
Yeah. Or like Jay-Z, you would claim to have it, then lose it, and then say you never had it really in the first place.
And even if I knew, I wouldn't say in public.
Right. Okay. Final question in terms of IBM and quantum computing. What is like the idea behind such a company having a quantum computer? Like, will they be offering business-to-business solutions or business-to-customer solutions? How does it work?
Yeah, first of all, it's an investment in the future technology, right? The way IBM has always worked is, one part is the things you sell now and that bring immediate business benefits, right? The other thing is research. Right, so you always need to keep investing into future technologies, of which some work, some not, right, in the future. But if you don't keep investing in that, then eventually you fall out, right?
Right.
Regarding business to business or business to consumer, so it is very, very unlikely that we're ever gonna carry quantum computers in our pockets because
of black holes.
Because of black holes, exactly. No, because, it's not just about the chip. It's about designing the entire system that keeps the chip cold enough, that, protects it from radiation, from all the other disturbances, right? So that's why it is highly unlikely that these will ever get out of, these dedicated laboratories or, spaces. So, the model that this will most likely work in is through the cloud, right? So, in the same way we have supercomputing centers today, right? So you don't carry a supercomputer in your pocket, but you use it if you want to, perform some heavy calculation or something, right? It will be the same with quantum computer, right? So, nowadays everything is accessible through internet, so there's no need to have it with you. If you can, connect to it via the internet, submit the job, and it will run there.
So in essence, quantum computing is basically like basic science. You just lay some foundations and then you build on it. Like with this Large Hadron Collider that suddenly popped into conversation. I don't know how, but anyway, so plenty of stuff is happening there to describe it like that, and then you just take the bosons and other stuff, and people don't really get it. Well, they get excited about some bosons, but they don't really understand it, and then suddenly 2 or 3 iterations later they get a GPS or something like that, right? Or better X-rays.
It's not exactly the same, because quantum computers are already an implementation of quantum mechanics, which is the basic science, right?
Okay.
So quantum mechanics is a basic science that describes nature at a very small level, right? Quantum computers are already an implementation of that for a purpose, right?
Yeah.
So to perform these heavy calculations. So it's not that this is just about science, simulating things in science, that's just one of the use cases. It's very relevant to business as well. For example, one of the industry sectors that is quite interested in this is, for example, finance.
Yeah.
These are the guys that, place their computers close to the stock exchange to get that millisecond of advantage.
And they're gonna be buying neutrinos any day now.
Yeah, something like that. So of course this is, if you give them the potential to perform, let's say, some portfolio optimization or asset allocation or whatever in a much faster time, you know, it catches their interest, right? Also, for example, for machine learning, right? That's also one of the very interesting application areas.
Finally, we're talking. Yeah, I get it.
No hypes. Quantum, machine learning.
Of course, but it makes sense that you can simulate so many outcomes in a microsecond that they get the knowledge. I mean, machine learning, they get the knowledge that they would usually get in hundreds of years. I get this. Finally, something I can understand. Finally, something I can relate to. Right. So it's been a blast. Thank you for coming. We had really smart persons. You can see. He didn't want to talk about black holes. But apparently what he said is we're not going to carry quantum computers in our pockets. Thank God, because my iPhone was really expensive and I really want to hold onto it.
And you would be cold if you carried a quantum computer in your pocket. So
it would be very cold, like outside.
Not the best
outer
idea.
Space. Right. Thank you very much again.
Sure.
And if you want to watch more stuff about interesting developments in basic science, in quantum computing, and all that, visit us at InfoShare and also at hicash.pl. See you there. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. It's really nice.